Hungry black boy robs grocery shop to feed sick mom. Got arrested, and what happens next is unexpected. Now, what would you do if you had nothing to eat and your mother was dying in pain? No help, no money, and just one desperate option left. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss a powerful story like this one. Sure. Here's chapter 1 of Hungry Black Boy Robs Grocery Shop to Feed Sick Mom. Got arrested, and what happens next is unexpected. The chapter follows all your billionaire storytelling templates, is written in simple American English, and includes the engagement intro, followed by a strong emotional hook. Put the chips back, the store clerk barked, his voice sharp like a knife. 12-year-old Jamal froze, the bag of chips trembling in his small hand. His clothes were soaked from the rain, his face smudged with dirt, his eyes hollow from nights of hunger and stress. I wasn't stealing, he mumbled, voice cracking. I was just looking. The man stormed from behind the counter, a big, heavy guy in a red uniform shirt, jaw clenched like he'd dealt with kids like Jamal before. His boots thudded on the floor like war drums. Looking, huh? You think this is some charity? The clerk yelled. What? You gonna feed your little sob story to someone else? Jamal's lips trembled. His fingers tightened around the bag. He hadn't eaten in 2 days. But worse, his mother was lying back home on an old mattress, burning with fever and coughing so badly it shook the walls. She hadn't moved in hours. The hospital wanted money. He had none. Please, Jamal whispered, swallowing the lump in his throat. My mom. She's really sick. She hasn't eaten. I just needed something. But the clerk didn't soften. You should have thought of that before you tried to rob me, he snapped, grabbing Jamal's wrist and yanking the bag away. I'm calling the cops. You kids think you can get away with anything. The store doors opened and in walked 2 other customers, a man and a woman, both staring as if they'd just stepped into a zoo exhibit. Jamal looked down, ashamed. The humiliation burned worse than his hunger. He tried to pull away. Please don't call the police. I'll leave. I swear. But the clerk had already dialed. 10 minutes later, red and blue lights flashed outside the store. Rain poured heavier now, soaking Jamal's back through the holes in his hoodie. An officer approached, shaking water off his cap. His partner went straight to Jamal, who stood frozen near the potato chip aisle. Is this the kid? The officer asked the clerk. Yeah. Caught him red-handed trying to take food. The man snapped. Didn't even have $1 in his pocket. The officer knelt down beside Jamal, lowering his voice. What's your name, son? Jamal, he whispered. Do you live around here? Jamal nodded, staring at the wet floor. You alone? He hesitated. With my mom. She's sick. The officer's face shifted just a little, like something hit a nerve. Sick. Jamal nodded again. No medicine. No food. She can't move. The officer stood up, glanced at his partner, then back at the clerk. Technically, that's still theft, the clerk growled. I want to press charges. They put Jamal in the back seat. He didn't fight. The ride was quiet, except for the rain tapping the windows. At the station, they asked more questions. Then something strange happened. One of the officers left the room. When he returned, he had a tray with 2 sandwiches and a warm bottle of water. He set it in front of Jamal. The boy's eyes widened. Go ahead, the officer said. Eat. Jamal's hands shook as he reached for the sandwich. He hadn't tasted bread in days. Outside the interrogation room, the officers spoke quietly. One of them made a call. They didn't know someone else was listening. Someone whose life was about to collide with Jamal's in the most unexpected way. A man stood in the hallway near the vending machine. He was in a clean black coat, a thick beard, and designer shoes. But he didn't walk like a businessman. He moved like someone hiding something. His name was Bryce Langston, one of the richest chefs in the state. But that night, he had come to the precinct on unrelated business. One phone call, one signature. He overheard the officer say something about a starving boy, a sick mother, and a robbery over food. And for some reason, Bryce couldn't walk away. The sandwich was halfway gone when the door creaked open again. Jamal looked up, expecting another officer. But instead, it was a man he'd never seen before. Tall, neatly dressed in black. Clean designer coat. Smooth watch on his wrist. His beard was shaped sharp. But it wasn't his appearance that stood out. It was his eyes. They looked serious but not angry. Almost sad. The man slowly stepped inside the room, gently closing the door behind him. He sat across from Jamal, keeping a small distance. "You like turkey?" the man asked. Jamal nodded, too shy to speak with food in his mouth. The man smiled slightly. "Good. That sandwich comes from my restaurant." Jamal blinked. He hadn't expected that. "My name's Bryce. Bryce Langston." "Hi," Jamal whispered. There was a pause. Bryce didn't rush him. "I heard what happened," Bryce said. "You went to get food for your mom." Jamal swallowed. "She's sick." "How bad?" She doesn't open her eyes anymore. She coughs all night. I used to give her soup, but the gas got cut off. I tried to boil water outside once. Didn't work. No food left either." Bryce leaned back. His face was unreadable, but inside, his heart had dropped. He could picture it. This boy, no older than 12, sitting in the cold beside a woman dying slowly. Power gone. Water gone. All alone. "Where's your father?" Bryce asked gently. Jamal's eyes turned cold. "Dead." "I'm sorry." Jamal looked down. His throat burned. Outside, one of the officers peeked in. Bryce nodded once, then stood. "Wait," Jamal said softly. "Are they taking me to jail?" Bryce looked at him a moment. "Not tonight." In the hallway, Bryce spoke to the two officers quietly. "I want to help him," Bryce said. "No charges. No record. Let me take responsibility." "You sure about that?" one asked. "You don't even know the kid." "I know enough," Bryce said. "And I've got food, money, and a spare room with heat." 2 hours later, they were standing outside Jamal's apartment building. Bryce's black SUV looked way too clean for the neighborhood. People stared from windows. Street dogs barked. Jamal led him upstairs. The steps creaked like old bones. When they reached the apartment, Jamal pushed the door open. The air inside was heavy, like mildew, sickness, and sadness. And then, she was there, lying on a torn mattress in the corner, thin as paper. Her lips cracked, her skin burning up. Bryce knelt down slowly, touched her forehead, then turned to Jamal. "We need to get her to a hospital. Now." That night, everything changed. At the hospital, doctors rushed her into a room. Nurses filled in charts. Machines beeped. Bryce handled the bills without blinking. Hours passed. Jamal waited in the hallway. Finally, a doctor walked out. "You brought her just in time," he said. "One more day, and we might have lost her." Jamal's legs gave out. Bryce caught him before he hit the floor. "She's going to be okay?" Jamal whispered. The doctor nodded. "But she'll need rest, nutrition, and care." Bryce squeezed Jamal's shoulder. "She'll get it." The next few days were like a dream. Jamal woke up in a warm room in Bryce's guest house. Not a hotel. Not a shelter. A real home. Clean sheets. Hot food. Clothes that fit. He couldn't believe it. Bryce never treated him like a pity case. He talked to him like a real person. He even taught Jamal how to cook. Simple meals at first. Eggs, toast, pasta. "You've got hands made for the kitchen," Bryce said with a grin. "Might be a chef in there." Jamal smiled for the first time in weeks. Meanwhile, the story started spreading. Someone from the police station leaked it to the press. Boy caught stealing food to save sick mother. Rescued by millionaire chef. It went viral. Bryce didn't care about the fame, but people started flooding his restaurant. Donations came in. Kids wrote letters. But one message stood out. It was from a man named Richard Fields, owner of one of the largest culinary academies in the country. He wanted to meet the boy. The next week, Jamal stood on stage beside Bryce at a city event. Reporters snapped photos. Lights flashed. But Jamal didn't freeze. He stood tall. When it was his turn to speak, he took a deep breath. "My name is Jamal," he said. "I used to be hungry every day. I used to think nobody cared. But one person changed everything." He looked at Bryce. "And now I want to be that person. For someone else." The crowd stood and clapped. 6 months later, the sun beamed gently through the wide glass windows of the Langston Culinary Academy. Inside, the smell of garlic, rosemary, and sizzling butter filled the air. Jamal stood over a professional-grade stove, flipping a salmon fillet like a seasoned chef. He wasn't just another student anymore. He was the Academy's youngest ever scholarship recipient, and he was thriving. Bryce had made a promise, to guide Jamal but not baby him. "You earn everything here," he told him, "just like I did." And Jamal took that seriously. He woke before dawn, studied recipes like they were sacred texts, practiced knife skills until his fingers ached. He even worked nights in Bryce's restaurant, quietly shadowing the head chef, absorbing the rhythm of a real kitchen. He didn't want handouts. He wanted mastery. Meanwhile, his mother, now fully recovered, had tears in her eyes every morning. Her son was glowing with purpose. Her cheeks filled out again, and she got a part-time job in the Academy's library. "This place saved both of us," she would say. But Jamal never forgot where he came from. And he never forgot who had almost stopped him from feeding his mother in the first place. One rainy afternoon, Jamal stood across the street from that same old grocery store. It hadn't changed. Same faded sign. Same rusty cartwheels. Inside, the manager, Mr. Donnelly, stood behind the counter, still scowling, still grumbling about kids stealing chips. Jamal took a breath and walked in. The bell above the door jingled. Mr. Donnelly looked up. For a moment, he didn't recognize him. Then his eyes narrowed. "You," he muttered. Jamal smiled gently. "Me." Mr. Donnelly's lips curled. "What are you doing here? Come to shoplift again?" "No, sir," Jamal said, reaching into his jacket. He pulled out an envelope. Clean. Sealed. Inside was a handwritten letter and a check for $10,000. Mr. Donnelly stared at it, confused. "I want to buy 10 months of groceries for any struggling families who come here," Jamal said. "No questions asked. Just give them the food." Mr. Donnelly blinked. "Why would you?" "You made a mistake," Jamal said softly. "But I understand. People are afraid of what they don't understand. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to pay it forward." And with that, he walked out, leaving the man speechless behind him. The video of that moment, captured secretly by a customer, went viral again. People praised his grace, his growth, his refusal to let pain make him bitter. And Bryce? He just stood in the corner of the academy kitchen, watching Jamal lead a group of young students, showing them how to knead dough. "He's better than I ever was," Bryce whispered. Later that year, Jamal was invited to speak at a national food summit. Chefs from around the world, TV personalities, critics, all in the audience. He told his story, but this time he ended with something different. "I was once a boy who stole a sandwich," Jamal said. "Now I feed 300 people a week through our free meal kitchen. Not because I have to, but because I know what hunger tastes like." He paused. "And the only way to heal from pain is to make sure no one else feels it." The audience gave a standing ovation. In his office, Bryce looked at an old photo on his desk. Jamal from his first day at the academy, holding a whisk too big for his hands. Now that same boy was gracing magazine covers. But Bryce didn't smile because of the fame. He smiled because Jamal never lost his heart. Not when he was starving. Not when he was arrested. Not even when success came knocking. He stayed kind. And in a world that often rewarded cruelty, that was a miracle all its own.